Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Because every house has to have a foundation, it was laid strongly on my heart to start this podcast with a daily series. I am using the book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, which you can buy for men or for women. I invite you to read along with me. Welcome back. Today we're talking about Genesis 13 through 15. Only 3 chapters today because there's a lot of meat on the bone here. This section starts with Lot and Abram splitting, and Lot chooses first. Abram gives him the first choice, which is not culturally the way things would have been done. Abram being the older person, he should have received the respect of the best, but Lot gets to choose. Abram gives him his chance, and he chooses the most lush. He chooses the valley where everything is green and wonderful, and that is also where all the cities are. Abram is left with the country. He's in the countryside of Canaan. We also see the war of kings. So we are starting to see kings coming together and Abram getting involved. God doesn't ultimately want Abram to profit at all from the city. There is in these chapters a definite divide between the countryside and the city. Now, this is very interesting to me because I am married to a city planner, and there is so much that I hear about the mentality of building cities and the theory behind how things are done. We have had many discussions about what's going on in the city, and as farmers living out in the countryside, and our world has become more and more but divided. It is obvious in our political world. It's obvious in food access and in resource management that there is a growing war between the city and the country. And it's so interesting to see it here in Lot and Abram. It's already beginning. What sticks out to me first is that Lot and Abram split because the land cannot sustain them anymore. It speaks to fertility. It speaks to the fact that Lot and Abram are being fertile and multiplying. Their animals, their flocks are multiplying, and there's a recognition that the land can only sustain so much. I think about fertility because we raise bees, and people talk about swarms and actually discouraging swarms in conventional beekeeping, but swarming is a sign of fertility. Just like here with Lot and Abram, they've outgrown the space that they're living on, the land. Speaking about it in this way, it is obvious, it is an understood, it's an accepted notion that you are eating from the land, that there is a social contract, there is an emotional and very real physical contract between humans and the land that they are living on. This idea that we go all the way back to our first day, where we are so tied in with the soil and the fertility of the soil, is brought up again here. The land can only support so many humans and animals before it begins to fail, and the humans and the animals become sick because the land cannot provide enough. And so they have to split. I go back to this a lot with foraging. The idea of foraging in cities has become really, really popular, and you see whole teaching methodologies around taking people out into the wild spaces and foraging. But I have been actually against this for a long time. Not that you shouldn't gather things on your land or on wild land in your community that you are managing correctly and in direct communication with your neighbors, and you're managing that land and that forest and those plant communities properly. But the idea that somebody from the city who is not on a piece of ground in the same way as somebody that is in the country, cities are often artificially propping up more of a population than the land could handle because they're using resources from the surrounding countryside instead of having a direct relationship with the land themselves. So high rises are hundreds of people on one patch of ground that, if we were in proper relation, may only sustain one family. Here, Lot and Abram are a very real reminder that the land is intended to be in relationship with us. We are supposed to be stewards of the animals and the plants and the soil, and in return, that land is supposed to feed us, heal us, give us our remedies, provide solace, provide health from our body, mind, soul, strength. And there's only so much that a patch of ground can do. There's only so much that it can sustain. And until we need to split and we need to move off our fertility to another space. We see this all throughout nature. We see this in the way that plants drop seeds. There are strategies to send them out and away from the original plant so that we don't compete, because we are supposed to be intimately tied to the soil. This is so foundational to our health, this relationship. I think there are ways, even in cities, to try to have this relationship and to still use the ground and to care for and tend the ground and the plants that are there, even in a city lot. But it takes conscientious tending. It takes a choice, and we're not talking about this. We're not doing this very often. We do wind up in problems. And I think here God is really saying with Abram out of the War of Kings, I do not want you to be tied to the city in any way. I don't want you to be sustained off of the city in any way. I want you to be sustained in this proper relationship. And I think it's something that we need to examine what's going on in our cities today, what's going on in the country today. Why is there a split? Why is there a war? It started here. We have an educational note here that we need to stop and take notice of, that we are tied so much more to the land than we are accepting, and we need to get back to that to be healthy. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.